Hey guys, I seen something really cool over at the Fujifilm rumor site. It's the Fujifilm X-S10. Now this is a rumored camera that Fujifilm is supposed to be launching, or announcing rather, this month, October 14th or 15th. Really cool, and I'm probably going to buy one myself, and here's why. The size and weight. This is smaller and more lightweight than the XT2, XT3, and it really is the XT4 that I want it to happen. If you watch some of my other videos, you know that when they were speculating the XT4, I was hoping they'd take the XT3 and the XH1, which is the camera with the bigger grip with Ibis, and merge the two. That really didn't happen. XT4 did have Ibis, but it took more traits from the XT3. It increased in size, it increased in weight, and yeah, there was, the Ibis and the battery. But Fujifilm, I guess, has been working on trying to shrink the Ibis mechanism. And they did that in the XT4, even when some people said it wasn't possible, even though other manufacturers do it. But it looks like they're shrinking it way, way down. What this XS10 is, instead of the XT3 having a baby with the GFX, not the GFX, but the XH1, it's like the XT30, which is the miniature version of the XT series. Like the XT30 and the XH1 combined. So it has everything I wanted, even smaller, which is even better. There's some things that I don't like, but it's just what it is because of the size of the camera. But let's get into it, guys. It's got the flippy screen. It's something I really want. And really, let me state why I want this camera. I really want a great camera to take on vacations, and just an everyday camera, so it's always with me. In the XT2, I currently have the XT2. It's a good camera, but I really didn't want anything bigger than that or heavier than that, because even that camera, if you're going on, all day events where you're walking around, it even becomes a little bit heavy. I know I might sound like a wimp, but I really wanted something smaller, something more compact. But the XT30 and the cameras like it before it never really drew attention to me, or really attracted to me because of the grip. I always want something with a little bit better of a grip. My favorite camera in the hand of all times was my Canon, what was it, a T5i. It felt great in the hands. It was a small camera, but it had a nice grip, and I didn't have to worry about dropping it. The XT4 is a little bit bigger of a grip, but not like this camera. This one looks like a really nice grip. It's got everything I'm looking for. So let's get into it. The specs are basically, here we go. It's going to be a little lighter than the XT2 even. I think the XT2, don't quote me on this, comes in right around 500 and something grams. So this is going to be like maybe 10% lighter than my current camera, the XT2. But look at that grip. I mean, the size, there's a picture of the size of the XT4 back to back to this new camera, and it's a substantial shrink down. And look at it, it's just awesome looking. And the size really depends on the pictures of what lens is on the camera. And they do kind of show a few different angles and a few different lenses mounted to the camera. But it just looks awesome for a travel cam that you want to stick like a smaller 35mm f2, which that's what I usually walk around with, because that lens is awesome for the size and portrait capabilities, really anything. So I see myself walking around with this with a 35 f2 and a 12mm Rokinon in my bag, and that's it. A couple extra batteries, because you will need them, and I'll get to that in a minute. But what this has is Ibis. One of the big problems with me is when I'd walk around Chicago, wherever, is with the family, I want to do both video and photography. In some of the Fujifilm lenses, without having Ibis, it's almost like unusable unless you just walk around with the 1855, which I love my primes. So Ibis is really important. And again, I almost bought the XT4. I was still thinking about picking it up, maybe if a holiday sale came around this holiday season. But I really wanted something smaller and lighter, but still had a good grip. and this answers all of my needs. So again, some of these pictures right here, guys, take it for what it's worth, because these are some large lenses, like the 16 to 80. It looks a little bit unapportionable, but if that's even a word. But on some of the smaller lenses, I think it'll look just fine. Now this is the 18 to 55. This is the optical stabilized, kit lens that a lot of people call it, and it looks like a little bit larger than the body would probably normally align with, but definitely doable. I wish they had like a 35 f2 or a 23 millimeter f2, and I have a 23 millimeter f1.4, and I never had the need to buy any of the smaller lenses like the 50 and the 16, but I may just pick up a couple extra lenses just for this. But again, the 35 millimeter, that was a lens that I really didn't use often. I just said, I'm gonna try using this lens, and it really grew on me. So the 35 f2 and the 12 millimeter, I might just walk around with that, and might have the 16 millimeter f1.4 in the bag. But if they made a 16 millimeter f2, I would pick it up, but I believe the 16 millimeters a 2.8. I don't want to really lose that much light, because often that I know I'm kind of dragging on in the 16 millimeter. That a couple extra stops really makes a difference on a crop sensor camera when you're talking ISOs. But look at this thing, guys. Here's a smaller lens. I don't know which one this is. Let me see if I can see it. This is the 1545. This is the lower end lens, but look at that grip. It's got the same switch and functionality of that grip of the XH series, which is awesome, really cool. Doesn't have all the crazy dials. That's one of the things that's a negative, but to me, it's got way more positives than negatives. So let me cover some of the negatives, and they're not a big deal for me. One is the battery. It continues to have the older, smaller battery like the X-T2 and X-T3 and all the other cameras that use that same battery. That's fine with me. I wouldn't use this camera as a professional camera. This camera would just be for me. So having a couple extra small, and they are very small batteries, fine. And as long as you power it off when you're not using it, I would walk around with one extra battery. Now, if I'd go to the hotel, I'd swap out with all fresh batteries, but I really didn't need more than one or two. I would never take more than two batteries on vacation, but when I'd go back to the room, I'd throw it in the charger. And again, when we'd go back between the day or something, or if I'm going to be out for the whole day, yes, I'd take both batteries. Or sometimes I just have them in the bag with me, but not a big deal for me. Again, if you're shooting a wedding, it's a whole different story. You would not use this camera to shoot a wedding or any kind of event like that for like a paid gig. It'd be fine if you're shooting for a friend or something else, as far as either charging them nothing or just a little bit. The flippy screen, still on the negative. So the one negative would be the small battery. If you see that as a negative, I see that as a positive because I want a smaller camera. Second negative is one card slot. The XT2s, the 3s, the 4s, hell, even I think the XT1s, all the XT and H1, all two card slots. But again, those are cameras that are, looking to go into the professional or semi-pro area. You need two card slots if you're going to do paid work. That's my opinion. I've had a card that failed. But for me, I don't see that as a huge deal. When I'm on vacation, every time I get back to the hotel room, I'm looking at my pictures. I'm sometimes editing them and uploading them to Google. So if I happen to lose something, my wife's got some pictures on her phone, and cell phones take great pictures, by the way. Other people in our group also have pictures on their phone. So if I lose a portion of that day, not the end of the world. Not the end of the world at all. So one card slot in a smaller body, it's just what it is. It's not like they're doing it to take something away, and they might, but to me, it's what is expected for the price point and the size of this body. So that would be, to me, the other negative. So that's two so far. The third one I see is the ISO dial. You're not going to have that on this camera. So you're not going to have an ISO and you're not going to have a shutter. Let's go down the top of it. So if you look at it, you're going to see They're just dials that you can turn, but they're not going to be ISO in shutters. To me, I do love that about my XT series, but for a travel camera, not a big deal at all. And I'll tell you why. So what I do is if I'm walking around, I'm going to be shooting with the aperture is on the lens, right? So you're adjusting the aperture on the lens. And the shutter is what I use most of the time because ISO, what is ISO? I often shoot auto ISO. And the reason I do that is because you need the light to get the picture. So what are you going to do? The shutter, however, you can play around with the shutter depending on your scenario. What I mean by that is if I am going to shoot something that is moving, I'm going to bump that shutter up. If I'm shooting something static, especially with Ibis, I'm going to slow that shutter down as much as I can and focus on taking a steady shot. So that's where the shutter is critical. And with this camera, let me go into another view. You can see I'm sure you can adjust the shutter or having the option to assign the shutter on that hand grip. So you have your aperture setting on the lens, you have your shutter on the hand grip, and you set to auto ISO and you're rocking it. And here's the other advantages. Okay, it's really that's the only negative. And if you want to call these negatives, I don't see them as negatives for this particular camera. Again, this is going to be a small travel cam that is, I can take it anywhere with me. So let's look at some of these other pictures, and I like where they put the shutter release. It's just, I imagine this thing with a small little hand strap, which I couldn't use with the XT2, and nothing around my neck, and just walking around having it secure in my hand with a small hand strap. Here's what the other things I'm really excited about this camera: flippy screen. I mean, for professional use, really doesn't have much use. If you're doing street photography, not much use. But if you're walking around doing selfies, like if you're a blogger, and not something I do, but for me, it's to be able to take selfies with my family. So there's so many more pictures that I had in our vacation pictures when I had my Canon M50, which had the flippy screen, or the Canon T5i. I mean, it's night and day. I'd have a wide angle lens, or even the 18 millimeter length, hand length away. My son, my wife, or just sitting on the pool side, I would take tons more family pictures than I ever did with the XT2, and it was one of the reasons I took the the Canon M50 on vacation with me. And I didn't like the camera, but to be able to take the selfies with the family, not just me walking around myself taking selfies, but with the family, it was huge. It really was huge. So I'm really excited about that. And then I'm assuming it's going to have like the touch interface as well. The mic jack, it's got a mic jack, so I will have some kind of audio. I don't know how I would do the audio. I would have some audio, either a plug-in little microphone, which I'll have to do a review on. And I have this cool little microphone that can just pop in the side, or I'd put like the one I'm on now, what is it, the Rode Micro on the top. That just might be a little bit big with the fuzzy cat, dead cat, because I don't have another way to replace that dead cat. I've done many videos before. Maybe I won't give up yet, but I haven't found a way to replace effectively that dead cat with something smaller. So, mic jack is critical. I hope it's a standard mic jack plug. I think it is by the size of this plug. I don't want to have to use adapter, so I think they're going to pull that off. It's got some standard, like I'm assuming for headphones with the USB adapter, but the other thing, there's a couple more things I like about that. The other thing I really like about this camera and is the custom settings, like custom 1, 2, 3, 4. And I haven't used this camera obviously yet, but I'm thinking you could probably set custom 1 through 4 with video functions. You could dial in high speed, and the rumored specs, this will do 4K 30 and full HD 1080 for like 240 frames, which is really cool. With Ibis, a sharp prime, and I'm thinking you'd probably be able to set the custom settings for, like, one would be 1080 24p or 30, whatever you'd want to do, or 4K 30, and then you could go to 1080 30, 1080 60, and so on. So if you want to get some slow-mo B-roll, you could slow it down and then upscale it later in post. The other really, really cool feature that I'm so excited about, like literally, this camera is the camera I wanted for the X-T4, other than the 2 card slots, and obviously the X-T4 would have a bigger body and 2 card slots and the dials and stuff that I talked about. But is that record button. When I'm on vacation, and I know they've addressed this a bit in the X-T3 and X-T4, is when I'm on vacation, I see something cool, I'm taking pictures, photography, but I want to jump in and just take a quick shot of my kid doing something cool or just where I'm at. And to flip over into video mode is sometimes a pain in the butt. Even if it's quicker now with the X-T4, I want a dedicated button. I want a dedicated button where I can just hit it and it records it. I don't have time to, you're going to miss the moment. If I'm shooting photography, it doesn't apply for folks that do mostly video, but I'm mostly doing photography, but I want to capture that video real quick. And just to be able to hit that button and instantly, I'm assuming it's auto record, auto everything. I don't know. But regardless what it is, it's exciting to see that. And then I just unclick it and I'm still in my photography. None of my settings are changed. That would be clutch. That would be awesome. I'm assuming that's going to work that way. So yeah, and let me get a picture of these dials. See, these dials are really nothing other than what you see, like on the top, the mode dials. And this other one, I don't know what that is. Flash or focus. I see the flash. I don't know if you guys can, I'm going to blow it up a little bit. I'm not sure what this other dial does. It seems like it could have more use if they changed it a bit. If it had more of like a multi-tier dial setting to it and had numbers on the top and you can do 2 different things. But again, not a huge thing for me because I just want something simple, something light, something compact, has Ibis. It's got everything for me. And again, throwing a small 12 millimeter f2 Rokinon and a 35 millimeter Fujinon f2. I think this is awesome. With Ibis and the grip, man, I think they're going to have a winner. So let's go ahead and look at the specs. And this was rumored to launch again in a couple weeks, 14th, I believe. And the rumor is going to be right around $1,000 at launch. I don't know if I'll buy it, pre-order it, just because with Amazon, if it's out on Amazon, because I get the Amazon points back, and I was thinking about buying it on Amazon. But let's see. They don't have, okay, X-T4, here are some of the specs comparison. So the new X-S10, or the rumored, here's the width and height and all that, but it's tough to see. I'm going to show you guys a picture here of the X-T4, but here are the weights. So the weight is 465. The weight of the X-T30 is 383. So it's a bigger camera, bigger grip. It's got Ibis. So again, it's kind of in between. It's really like in between the X-T30, which I think is too small, and the X-T4, which is a little too big. I wouldn't say it's too big, but it's for walking around. Man, this is that sweet spot. Just small enough to fit in anything you want to put it in, and just big enough to be a real camera and have a decent grip on it. At least that's what I make of it as of so far. So let's look at some of the specs, guys. Here are these rumored specs. Again, 4K 30 and full HD at 240p. Film simulations. This is key for me because I like film simulations. One of the reasons I shoot Fuji is the out of the camera JPEGs. I love them. But I shoot RAW as well. I'll shoot both, and that's one of the things I'm gonna miss a little bit of having 2 card slots. Is for family, I'll write videos in JPEGs to one card and RAWs in the other. So when as I told you, I pop that card out, stick it in my iPad, and I'm uploading it. So my raw files are just staying in the camera, and when you pull that card in and out, you can have corruptions, more chances of corruptions. The other thing is with the RAWs, I don't use the RAWs unless I need them. So they're on that card and they don't get all mixed in with my others as far as importing and all that. And I just like it separate because if I don't need them at the end of the day, I trash the RAW files. I don't need to save them. And if, for example, I took this picture of and I probably should do a video just on this. I took a picture of this park bench and I underexposed it, and there was some shadows that JPEGs just couldn't recover. I also had that same thing happen with an inside picture of my son in a cruise ship overlooking the dining room, and I think I actually did a video on that one. And the JPEG was unrecoverable. And it was just something I messed up, and I didn't care. It's on vacation. I've taken a million other shots that day, but I wanted that picture because I liked that picture. And went into the RAW file, and I was able to get a usable image from it. So I use the RAW as a backup only, and if I don't need it, I toss them. Or now, if they're all written to the same card, I'll have to either just go JPEG and live with it, or or throw them out afterwards, filter them out. I might be able to write a script. But so you got the film simulations, which is awesome. 30 frames per second continuous shooting. I don't know if that's going to be shutter or if it's going to be eShutter, but not a huge deal for me. I don't shoot a lot of action, and that's not the reason I'm buying this thing. Mostly weight, size, and functionality. Right here it says October 15th, so that's in like less than a week. So 5 days from now. Right around $1,000. The 26 megapixel X-Trans sensor, deep grip. We see that. The same selfie screen is in the X-T4. The old battery, the 126S, which I'm fine with, good enough for me. I have 3 or 4 of them already, so I don't have to buy new batteries. I don't have to buy a new charger. That's the other thing. It's $100 less. I don't have to buy another charger. So the SLR styled, not rangefinder. Yep, that's cool. Ibis, this is the huge thing for me, is the 5-axis 6 stops, and the auto mode now records also raw images. I'm not sure what this is for auto mode now records raw, but okay, here's the shape comparison. This is what I wanted to show you guys. And I believe it's going to give us, it's going to give us some size comparisons to the different cameras. So I'm going to try to make this a little bit bigger. You guys can probably see it. So this is, I'm not really concerned about this new X-S10 compared to the X-H1. It's just a whole different category. But I'm really interested in comparing it to like the X-T4. Because look at this. You see the camera itself is the new X-S10, and this red dot here overlay that's shadowed out is the X-T4. You can see it's quite a bit smaller, both in the width and the depth. So it's quite a bit, but the grip is bigger than the X-T4. That's awesome. It's smaller camera, bigger grip. Again, that's what I've been waiting for. And yeah, so and if you're thinking about like, oh, the camera size isn't any smaller because of the grip, but it is, because if you're like me and you're putting that the camera in the bag, it's going to have a lens on it. So your overall dimensions from front and to back. So if you imagine this lens here or this camera here, and it had a lens protruding on the front, doesn't matter which one, pancake even probably, but more or less like the 35 f2, this dimension projecting forward is going to be past your hand grip. So when you're setting it in the bag, you still need to accommodate for the lens. Nobody takes their lens off and puts the camera in separately, right? So that dimension is going to be fixed based on the lens. So the grip isn't going to matter as far as dimensions going in your bag. Or really with a lens on, if you're just taking an overall dimension, it's not going to matter. But see, the back, you're saving off this little bit, and quite a bit if you count the eye cup. My bag currently, my X-T2 fits, but not. I don't have a lot of room again between this lens forward or mount forward and the eye cup. So shaving off that's a plus. And then look, they're also shaving about that equal amount on the side. So it's just overall a smaller camera compared to the X-T4, but a bigger grip. I would be awesome if they just took made a bigger battery to fit in that big grip. That would be the best of both worlds. Again, we're not going to talk about the XH1. Of course, it's going to be smaller. XH1 is a bigger camera. So let's look at some shots on the back here. So this, what are they're calling? Okay, I don't know. The overlays. These are some cool overlays. I don't know which camera's which. They didn't do a good job about labeling this before it was posted. You can see the XH1. I'm going to go up to the screen so you know which one I'm talking about. XH1 and XT200. And they don't have these others labeled because this one to the left and right here to the left, on the top to the left. Now this camera is probably the XT30, I'm sorry. And the one to the right, it looks like it is the XT4. I'm looking at let me zoom in a bit. Yes, XT4, just by the dials. And again, they don't have it labeled. But take a look at that size comparison. It's about the same size, even shorter than I'm assuming that's the XT30. It looks like the XT30 to me. But that is for sure the XT4, and it's a lot smaller. It's a lot smaller. The height of the camera, and then the depth. I don't know if they have a top down. Yeah, they're not showing it. This must be the. Okay, so this must be the XT. I'm making this up, guys, as I'm going. So sorry. I don't know if this looks like the XT4 on the top, but I don't know. It looks like the XT4. No, I don't. Take that back. I don't know. Let's just skip that. It'd be nice if they had them labeled. Maybe they'll update it with some labels. But look at this one. This one for sure is the XT4. I'm going to scroll up on the top right. Huge difference. Huge difference on both the height distance, and we've already seen the top down distance. The one underneath it looks like the XT. Yep, so this is the XT4 in the front side into the X-S10. So that is just perfect. So there it is, guys. Are you excited? As excited as I am? And for this I'll call it a middle line camera. It's not their flagship by any means, but I'm assuming it's going to have the same performance, autofocus, and processor as the X-T3 and X-T4. Great video, Ibis. I mean, I don't know what else I can ask for more. Small, compact, take anywhere camera, but you can still hold on to it. So I'm really, as you can tell, I'm really probably going to pick one up if it's even close to being what is rumored here. And this Fuji rumor site is pretty accurate at this point. A couple weeks to launch. These are real pictures. They're not mock-ups. So I'm kind of stoked. So I'd like to hear what you guys think. Please leave it in the comments. Thanks, guys. Take care. Bye.